Welcome to this video on making sourdough bread. I'm making this video especially for the Uncool Women of the World Facebook group. But you ladies don't know this, but I used to have a YouTube channel. And so if any of my former subscribers are watching this, that's fine too. But I will be referring to ladies. And if any gentlemen are watching, that's perfectly okay. I'm Carol Chenot, and I'm going to make this as quick as possible. This first section is going to be on what you need as far as equipment goes, and we'll get the process started. I have made a little timeline. Okay, so this is Monday night, and we're going to be just getting our starter ready, and then Tuesday we'll be putting it together and baking late Tuesday afternoon. But that doesn't mean that you have to be glued to your dough all day, and I'll show you why. Don't get too worried about this, but basically it comes in a couple of big blocks. So like tomorrow, I will be doing baking at the end of the day, but I've got a number of appointments. And so there are a couple of big blocks here, a 2 to 3 hour block towards the end where we're proofing the dough, a 2-hour block where it's resting, and then this 2-hour block where we're doing some folding and stretching. So this block you have to be available for, because it's every 30 minutes that you're going to be doing some stretching and folding. But you can be out of the house for this 2 hours, this 2.5 to 2 to 3 hours, you can be gone as well. And so I like to kind of count backwards. So I will be, let's see, the proofing will happen while I'm at my luncheon tomorrow from 11 to about 1:30. Okay, so if this is 11 o'clock, then this is 9 o'clock, then this means 7 o'clock in the morning is when I need to start making my dough and doing the first set of stretch and folds. Okay, so 7 o'clock. You will see me here probably in my bathrobe before I get my coffee, and then I'll get dressed somewhere along the line. But here is the equipment that you're going to need. You will need some kind of a bowl like this. I like this type of bowl because it's got kind of sloping sides, not just straight down sides, and it makes it very easy to do your scraping. This is a flexible scraper, and it's very valuable. You can get these on Amazon. This is a bench scraper, and this is good too, just for cleaning your countertop. Just gets all the stuff off of it. But you're going to use this as well. And then these are, I'll move my camera down. These are called bannetons, and they are filled with flour, rice flour, and that's what keeps the dough from not sticking. This is a single loaf, and then these are 2 smaller loaves, which work really great for giving as gifts. And then just a shower cap. I just discovered this by myself as I was looking for tools. That this shower cap fits very nicely over this bowl, and so this is going to keep it, kind of. I would say sanitary, but it's not going to be sanitary. It's just keeps dust from flying in. You also are going to need some kind of a kitchen scale, because all of this is going to be measured in grams, not cups. Okay, so that will be important. And then the types of flour that you're going to need are some good quality bread flour. and I like either Bob's Red Mill or King Arthur. And this is, they have flour like this artisan flour that specifically says for bread, and that's what you want. And then the rice flour, you can get this at, you can get it at Sprouts or Whole Foods, or we have just a small independent grocery store locally that sells this as well. So it's Bob's Red Mill. You might be able to find it in your chain store too. Okay, and then to get started, you're going to need your starter, and getting your starter ready is the only thing that we're going to do tonight. We're not going to mix up our bread dough. We're just getting our starter ready. So I'm going to head over to the fridge and get the starter that I've got saved. Okay, believe it or not, this is how much starter I'm going to use. It's about a tablespoon of starter. So it's not very much at all. Now, if you have a friend who's been making sourdough bread, and you can ask her or him for a couple tablespoons of starter, great. You can make your own starter. There are YouTube videos on it. One of my favorites is called Grant Bakes, and you can look it up on, in fact, I'll put the link in the description. It's a week-long process because it takes the flour and water and brings the yeast out of the air and turns it into the bacteria that you need for the starter. But so if you have one from someone already, if you belong to a Buy Nothing group on Facebook, that's a great place to say, I need a little bit of starter. Anybody got some they can share? So we'll be using that here. I forgot one other, one other supply, and that is a cast iron Dutch oven. Now, this is an old-timey chili pot, isn't it? I got this actually from someone who had an extra on my Buy Nothing group. So you can spend $350 if you want on a cast iron Dutch oven, or you can ask around or go to thrift shops. They need to be deep like this. Doesn't matter if it's enamel coated, that is fine. It just needs to be heavy like a cast iron Dutch oven would be. If you're making small ones, sometimes people will use, well, even large ones, sometimes people will use a cast iron frying pan and some kind of a cast iron or other dome to go over it that can withstand the heat. The thing is that this is going to get preheated to 500 degrees. So you can't just use a plain old, roasting tin. It needs to be thick, it needs to be heavy, and it needs to be able to withstand the heat. All right, let's get started feeding our starter for tomorrow. It doesn't take much in the way of ingredients to get your starter ready. It's going to take 50 grams of water and 50 grams of your bread flour. Now, 50 grams is not very much. This is not your bread recipe. This is just to feed the starter, to get it active so that it's working. This starter has been in the fridge for a couple of weeks, and it's just kind of laid there. Okay, so now we want to wake it up and get it active, and you'll see in the morning how active it has become. So let me aim the camera down so that you can see. I'm going to zero out, move this up a bit. I don't know if you can, let me turn this around. I'll zero that out, and I'm putting in 50, I'm reading these numbers upside down, so 48, and 50. Okay, there's our 50 grams of starter, or not starter, but water. And what I do next is I just mix this all together, and I use a chopstick just because it's easier to get into the jar. This is just a small mayonnaise jar, okay? So don't have to use anything fancy. You can, of course, you can spend hundreds on sourdough tools if you want. Okay, we've mixed our water in there, and let me just make sure that you can see there. 50 grams of bread flour. Oh, that was at 54, wasn't it? So we want to go up to 108. I should have zeroed it out. 92, 98. So you notice that that's going to be good. Okay. You notice that it wasn't exactly 50. That's okay as long as you're doing equal parts water and flour. So I'm just stirring it all together. It doesn't take much, and it's not very beautiful. Here's what it looks like in the jar. And so I just kind of, you could scrape down the sides. I don't. I just leave them like this. And then what I will do is put a rubber band around. In fact, I think I have my rubber band right over here on another. Okay, so I mark with the rubber band where my starter has been fed to. Okay, so you remember it started out here. Now with a total of 100 grams, it's up to here. And then by the morning, it'll be up at least double. That's what it needs to be, is at least double. I put the lid on it, and then I put it on my countertop, but I always put it on something just because my house is particularly cool. And if you put it on the granite or even the wood, it just doesn't seem to activate quite as nicely. So I put it on a little pot holder, and that works just fine. So I'll see you in the morning, and we will actually make our recipe, and then I'll show you how to stretch and fold. Good morning. We're ready to do our recipe, and it's too early for makeup, but it's not too early for our starter. This is what I put my starter on, and take a look at this. This is where it started, and this is where it is now. You can see all of those oxygen bubbles in it, and if I take the lid off, it smells a little fermenty, and that's exactly how you want it to smell. So we are going to use 100 grams of this starter along with 300 grams of water and 450 grams of bread flour with 10 grams of salt. So I'm going to put that together and mix it up and show you what it looks like. 300 grams of water, and then 100 grams of starter is, see how gummy and gooey it is. There's about 30. It's going to take almost the entire amount. This is 105, so I'll take out just a tad. There we go. And when it comes right back down to it, you'll see that there's not very much left in our jar. I'll show you what I do with that later for the next batch. But I'll take this starter and mix it with the water and get it dissolved, and then I'll add the flour to it. Just dissolved it so there are not as many huge clumps of starter. And then I just pour it in from the bag. I've zeroed out my scale, and I'm doing 450 grams of flour, which is quite a bit. There we go. And then 10 grams of salt. I'll zero out the scale, 10 grams. I always put the salt in last just because I don't want it touching the starter. And then we'll mix that up. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Actually, I think you need to see how long it takes to do this. It doesn't take long at all, but you're just trying to get all of the flour incorporated and off of the sides as much as possible. There's not going to be any kneading of the dough. That's what the stretch and fold is going to be for. So you want to get it off your spoon and off the sides as much as possible. You're going to think that, oh my goodness, how could this ever really turn into a workable dough? But it does. And that's really all that you need to do for this particular stage. It's very, what we call shaggy at this point. Don't worry that the sides are not completely clean. You're just going to leave it like this. And this is where you'll use your little shower cap and put it off to the side. And it's going to stay there for your first 30-minute rest. Alexa, set the timer for 30 minutes. And then what you'll do with this is scrape down the sides, pull it out, and put it in a new clean jar. And you'll just go back and forth between the jars. You'll clean your spoon, of course, and I need to warn you that this turns into cement when it sticks to your sink. So clean your utensils immediately or you'll be sorry. You'll have to really soak them to get off the flour and the mixture. So that's where we are, 30 minutes. We'll come back and see what it's done to the dough at that point. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes and we're ready to do our first batch of stretch and folds. Still no makeup, but that will come as the morning progresses. Just wanted to show you the jars that I'm working with. Now this is the original mayo jar with the starter. It's full of water soaking so that it doesn't turn into cement. And I just transferred it to another small jar. This is how much starter there is, and it can stay in the fridge for 2 or 3 weeks before, if you're not ready to make another batch of bread quite yet. So our bread dough has just been sitting here for 30 minutes, and this is what it now looks like. Our job here is to just stretch it and fold it over onto itself. The first time you do that, you're going to fold it 8 times, and I think of it as kind of north, south, east, and west. This is where your flexible scraper will come in. I should have shown you last night how flexible it is, because what I do is kind of get it all off the bottom like this first, okay, and then we're going to take it without tearing it and stretch it as far as it'll go. Oh, I forgot one important step, and that is to run your hands underwater and then shake all the water off. so that it doesn't stick to you quite as much. Okay, let's try that again. You're going to stretch it and then fold it onto itself. Go a quarter turn, stretch it, and fold it onto itself. So you're going to do that 4 times before you get back to the original spot. Of course, there's no scientific way to do this. You're just estimating. You don't want it to tear. You just want to pull it as far as it'll go. And you'll see that there are all kinds of lumps and bumps and everything. That's fine. Those are going to go away as we do more of these stretch and folds. One more on this side and one more on this side. Okay, so here is our whole ball of dough, and I'm just going to kind of put it into more of a ball and set it back down in the bowl. Cover it. I won't cover it with the shower cap quite yet because my hands are a mess, but I will be covering it with the shower cap and setting it on the counter for 30 more minutes. All right, so we're back after 30 minutes, and I wanted to show you on our timeline, this was where we started, and we're up here to this point. Okay, we'll be checking off how far we progress as the day moves on. And our dough has been sitting here just resting, and what you're going to find is that the hydration of it, the flour to water mixture, just does something miraculous in this 30 minutes that it rests. Those bits of dough that were interspersed, the flour that was interspersed that didn't seem to get quite mixed in the shaggy dough is all of a sudden going to be smooth. It takes a couple of stretch and folds for that to happen, but it's going to be much, much smoother. So I'm going to turn the camera down so that you can see, and I'm going to put some water on my hands and use my flexible scraper and pull the dough up from the bottom, just like that, okay? And then if you remember, the first time we stretched, it went about this far. That's about as far as I could stretch it. Well, now I can stretch it this far, and I'm only going to fold it 4 times. Stretch it once, this is the second one, fold it over, take the third one, pull it as far as it'll go without ripping, and then fold it over, and then on the 4th one, do the same. So you're basically just trying to stretch it from 4 different directions, and then you don't have to do this step, but I always like to just kind of get a smooth top like this, put it back in the bowl. I'll wash my hands and then put my shower cap back on, and that will be it for the next 30 minutes. Alexa, set the timer for 30 minutes.
Set the timer, 30 minutes.
All right, time has passed, and it's up to this point right here. We're ready for another batch of stretch and folds. We've just got this one and then one more, and we'll be all set for it to rest for a longer period of time. So I'll take my shower curtain, or not shower curtain, shower cap off, wet my hands, move my camera down so that you can see better. Okay, so each time I wash my flexible scraper, just because, as you will find out, it is very sticky and very hard to get off if you let this dough sit on anything for very long. So just scrape it off the bottom of the bowl like this. Your wet hands will help. And take a look at how much stretchier it is. We're able to go all the way out here 1 time, and then 2 times. Move a quarter turn, stretch it out, 3, and 4. Okay, and you can see that all of that dry flour that was originally in our dough has all been hydrated, and we're down to having it be almost perfectly smooth. The next stretch will make it perfectly smooth and we'll be good to go. So that's the third stretch and fold. Here we are again on our timeline. We're up to here. We're going to do one final stretch and fold, and then we'll be ready for it to rest for a 2-hour block. And that's where you can do other stuff. You can see that during this section, you've got to be pretty available to come in after every 30 minutes. But when it's doing its 2-hour rest, you can do other things. Vacuum the house, wash the kitchen floor, whatever. So I'm going to get the water on my hands, bring my bowl over, and put the camera down so that you can see. And you'll notice that the dough is very much hydrated, and the stretching is kind of going to go on forever. Look at how far this is stretching. Whoa. And there aren't a lot of lumps and bumps in it because it's been well hydrated. Just sitting there incorporates all of that water. Now this is called a high hydration dough, and not every dough is like this. Some don't have the same proportions, but I find for this loaf, this works especially well. So this formula of 450 grams of flour, 300 grams of water, etc. There are different formulas, but this works very well. So you can see that all of the lumps are gone. There is no dry flour in this. Of course, there's dry flour on the side of the bowl, but that will get cleaned. And I put it here in the bowl for the last time. The next time we take it out, it will be getting shaped and put into the bannetons, and then it will be ready to be baked later this afternoon. So 2 hours in this bowl, shower cap goes back on, and we will see you in a couple of hours. Okay, we are back, and it's time to do the fun stuff, and although the whole thing is fun. And the thing I like about this particular recipe is that there's no kneading, and you're not standing there for minutes on end. 4 little stretch and folds, that's it. Just multiple times. So it's time to take our dough and shape it and put it in the banneton so that it can proof, which is going to be the final rise, and then we can bake it. Okay, so here is where we're going to use our countertop, and a granite or a wood or a butcher block or whatever works for you will be fine. I'm going to move my camera down here so that you can see a bit better. And I'll use my flexible scraper to scrape the dough out onto the countertop. And you'll notice that there is no flour all over the dough. The light that you're seeing is just the light from our solar tube up above. Because what you want to do is you want this dough to stick onto your surface. You're going to take it and stretch it out and make it into a big rectangle. Just a big rectangle like this. And you can see that there are some holes in, or not holes, but bubbles. That's fine. Those are going to disappear. We're going to fold it 1/3 onto itself, and then another 1/3 onto itself. And then we're going to take it and just roll it up and tuck it. You can see what I'm doing with my fingers. I'm kind of sealing it as I go up. Okay, so once we get to the end here, this is such a fun process. Once we get to the end, you've got a nice ball that isn't ready to go in the banneton quite yet, okay? What we want to do is take it and build some of the gluten in it and make it so that it's not just full of huge air holes. Those are not good for the butter and jam, you know, falls right through. So we do want some air holes, but not a ton of them. So this is where you'll use your bench scraper, and you're going to lift it and bring it around like a 45-degree, kind of pressing it onto itself. So turning it like this and pulling it towards you. Turning it and pulling towards you. Turn and pull. Turn and pull. So what that's doing is any loose seams that there were are getting connected with the rest of the dough. So you'll be able to feel it as you're doing it. You'll see some bubbles pop up, and that's okay. Those you can pop with your fingers if you want to. But this is turning into a very nice, smooth dough with no real seams that are going to interfere with the baking of it. So you do that for, I don't know, 10, 15 times till you have a really nice, smooth top like this. Okay? All right, now it's time to get our banneton ready. Actually, I would have gotten this ready before. You're going to want to use rice flour. Trust me, do not use your bread flour because rice flour is a whole different consistency. And you want to take it and make sure that all of the grooves of your banneton are filled with the flour, because you don't want your bread sticking. Once it's proofed, it's going to be ready to put in the Dutch oven, and if it's sticking in the banneton, all the uplift that it's gotten during the proofing is going to deflate. So you don't want that. You want it to pop out nicely, so it doesn't hurt to over flour your banneton, because you'll be able to just brush it off the bread when it comes out. That's not a problem. It's not going to bake into the bread for sure. Okay, once it's put together like this, you're going to just take your bench scraper, pull up your bread, and turn it over. Good idea, get a little flour on my hands. Turn it over so that it is seated nicely in the pan, in the banneton like this. Make sure that it's not lopsided, because it will rise lopsided. So, you know, just scoot it around a little bit so that it's not lopsided. And you can sprinkle a little rice flour on the top as well. Now I'm going to take my, actually this time I'm not going to use my shower cap. Sometimes I put my shower cap on it and then put it in the proofing drawer, but I'm not going to this time. Just going to leave it, and we'll see how that comes out. So let me move the camera up here a second. And my oven happens to have a proofing setting, which is 100 degrees. A lot of ovens don't, but basically it just goes in like that. If your kitchen is warm enough, I live on the central coast of California, and it's cool here, and so my kitchen is just not warm enough. But if your kitchen is decently warm, then just cover it, leave it on the counter or in a warmish spot, away from drafts, and we'll leave it. It is now 5 after 11. I've got to get off to my luncheon. I'll be back around 1:15, 1:30. We'll pull it out and we'll preheat the oven so that it can bake. We'll see you then. Our bread has been proofing for a little over 2 hours, 2¼ hours. So now it's time to take a look at it and bring it out of the proofing setting in the oven and preheat our oven to 500 degrees and put the cast iron Dutch oven in. It gets preheated as well. And I need to tell you that when I was first doing this, the bottom of my bread was always so dark and hard to cut through, almost burnt. And I couldn't figure out why, because I raised the rack in my oven so it wasn't sitting on the bottom rack. And it's such a heavy pot, you wouldn't think that things would burn very easily. And then one evening it came to me just as I was going to sleep, and I thought, well, what if I could raise the bread within the Dutch oven? Surely there's something that could do that. And then I remembered I have a little trivet that is just this tall that's cast iron. And so I put that in the bottom of my Dutch oven. I don't know if you can see it there. And that's what my bread is going to sit on. So it's going to be on parchment paper. And I just get my parchment paper at the 99-cent store. There's no reason to buy expensive parchment paper. So let's go over to the oven and pull it out. And oh, it looks great. And let's start it up to 500 degrees. We will start that. I'll show you that in just a second. We'll get our Dutch oven in so that it can be preheating and getting super hot. And then I'll put my camera down so you can see what I'm doing with the bread. I take one piece of parchment paper. Doesn't this look good? It filled up the whole banneton. It even smells good already. Take one piece of parchment paper and then you're going to just flip it over like this and it will pop out like this. This is kind of a little bit of an odd shape, but we'll see. Now I'll take a brush and just brush off the excess rice flour that there is. And then right before I put it in the oven, I'm going to slice it with a lame, and I'll tell you why I do that. And then we'll put it in the Dutch oven as soon as it's all preheated and we'll be good to go. So we're up to our very last step. Our oven is preheated and it's time for us to do a little slice on the top of the bread dough. This is called a lame, and it's just a razor blade on a little tool. And you can use a sharp knife, but the more fine the blade is, the better it's going to be. And what this does, I'll put my camera down. What this does is allows the bread to expand out of its current shape here. And so it should be at a 45-degree angle, and I usually do something like this. Try to make it fairly deep, and then I do a couple of swipes across like this. So I'll go over to the oven, get my cast iron Dutch oven out, and it is super hot, so you have to be super careful about it. I will put my camera down here as well, and I usually put my things on the stove just because I don't want to put them directly on the granite. And then I pick up the parchment paper and set it down into the Dutch oven. Try to keep it off of the bread itself. Okay, and put the lid back on. And into the oven it goes. Now it's going to go in for 50 minutes. And the lid is in this recipe, I leave the lid on for 50 minutes. Timer, we'll set it for 50. In some recipes and other videos that you may see on YouTube, it'll have you put it in for 20 minutes, take the lid off for the second 20 minutes. I think you have to just experiment with your Dutch oven. Try one that way, 25 and 25 or 30 and 15. You know, it just depends on how your oven works the temperature at 500 and how crispy you want the crust. I find that keeping it on the whole time makes a very nice crispy crust, and I just go with that. So try it out that way first, and if you want to experiment, that's certainly fine as well. So the next and final step is the big reveal. How does it end up looking? Okay, exciting times. This is the big reveal here. The timer just went off. Turn off my oven. And again, it is very hot, so be extremely careful. We will get our camera down so that you can see. It's always kind of a, ooh, what are we going to find under the lid? But this is what we find. Let me get rid of this lid. Oh, it looks gorgeous. It doesn't have what they call an ear, where it kind of flips up on the side. I think that's because I don't have a sharp enough blade to actually make the cut, but it's pretty fun. Trying to stay within the camera range. Let me get rid of the Dutch oven. Okay, and what you can see on the bottom is a nicely browned crust, not burned. And I think it looks pretty darn good. It will be great tasting, and when we cut it open, I'll show it to you. It always has to cool for a couple of hours before you cut it open. The moment we've all been waiting for. Let's zoom down here and cut this right in the middle. Oh God. Cutting so nicely. The bottom crust is always a little tougher, but that's okay. And now the first slice is going to my husband, who will make a nice piece of toast out of it. And there you have it, a beautiful crumb with a few holes in it, and that's what we like, but very, very soft and just perfect for our purposes. Thanks for watching, and good luck on your sourdough.